introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay, so I'm here in a form of a moderator. So as I said in the chat, I teach English at the University of Mitrovica, Pristina, sorry, in Kosovska Mitrovica. So I'll be here noting down all the questions you have during the Alastair's presentation and voice them out later on in the discussion area. So I would please ask Alastair to now take the floor.
Okay, thanks, Anita. This is one of a series of webinars that this project Tempus BLATT, which is about blended learning in teacher training, a cooperation project between universities in Serbia, Kosovo, in Slovenia, in Italy, in Sweden, and a partner in Austria. And at the moment, we're working with sort of teacher training videos that to help teachers at the universities in the project. And we open them up basically to anyone else who's interested. And that's why maybe some of you have found out via Facebook and Twitter and so on about this session. And it's nice to see people from many, many different countries involved here. This is being recorded, so anything you put down in the chat window will be also recorded. Another thing you might like to know is that any links that you want to put into the chat will be clickable even in the recording, and also in my presentation material, all the logos and many of the screenshots and so on are links, and if you press on them, you will go and your web browser will automatically open them. So just about everything's clickable. Okay, we're going to be talking today about, I'm going to go through ways, but explaining first of all what open educational resources is, what we mean by open, and giving you some links and a little bit of time to practice with ways of searching, ways of finding open educational resources and using them and putting your own material out there on the net. And yeah. You're welcome to write questions in the chat, and Anita will field them. I might notice them myself sometimes, but we're not going to open the microphones for everyone because it can cause a little bit of trouble with sound quality. So we'll just keep it in the chat session. But that just use the chat for comments and links, and I'm sure many of you know some other services that I don't know. So I'll be interested in seeing what you can add to the discussion. So I will just change the view. And we'll get started. I'll try to stop now and again and ask for questions and ask for comments and so on, so that it doesn't just become sort of completely one-way communication, and Anita can come in and field questions and so on. So finding and using open educational resources is the theme for today. My name's Alastair Creelman. I'm a Scot who has lived in Scandinavia for the last 30 years. And at the moment I live in Kalmar in the southeast of Sweden and work for Linnaeus University, which is a fairly new university, which is the merger of two former universities in two towns in this area. So that we're a sort of new, sort of merged university. You can follow me in Swedish or English. I do blogs on IT and learning with news and comments and own thoughts about this. I spend enormous amounts of my free time blogging. I found that job has become a hobby. It's it's a fascinating area to follow, this the whole area of IT and education. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about openness first and why education is opening up and some of the factors behind that and how open is open, because a lot of people claim that they are open, that their services are open, but are they really? What is OER, Open Educational Resources? How do we define it? We're looking at Creative Commons, the licensing form for OER. and looking at how to find these resources. Because one of the problems, I think, with OER at the moment is that a lot of teachers find it's time consuming trying to find these things, and having tools to find the resources is one of the biggest problems. And also how to share material, how to make our material available for other people and save everyone an awful lot of extra work. So that's what I intend to talk about. My target audience for this is really people who don't know very much about OER, so there may be one or two of you who are very familiar with this, in which case, yeah, please be tolerant. I am not aiming for a very scientific and advanced discussion of OER. In this case, it is very much an introduction, so that you understand that. Yeah, cutest picture of the day. Learning is sharing, isn't it? We learn by, just a second, I'm making noises myself. I have to take away my Outlook. We learn by sharing, we learn by collaborating, we learn by working with others. Most of what we learn, in fact, takes place outside formal education, outside the classroom. We learn by watching others, by copying others, by getting help from others, by trying ourselves, by testing and failing and testing again. And it's a very practical, sometimes frustrating process, but we do it together with other people. And in a way, you can't teach without sharing. By teaching, you're sharing knowledge. The question is, how many people do you want to share with? And up till now, we've been sharing with people within a certain group in the classroom, within a school. And the materials that we've produced over the years tends to be locked away in the classroom or in the school, and nobody from the outside can ever access it or use it. The problem with this model today is that teachers all over the world are spending enormous amounts of time producing resources that many other teachers have already produced, and many often much better than you could ever produce. And we're just sort of living in little boxes separate from the rest of the world, and we're wasting an awful lot of time creating material that's already out there. And if we shared a bit more, we could save some time, and we could use that time for more qualified activities such as discussion, encouraging reflection, critical thinking, more depth in the lesson times. Because today, I would say context is king. We're drowning in information. There's tons of content out there. And the content that's on the net is generally free. And there's just tons of it. And sometimes we're met with this information overload, as that sign wonderfully suggests. It's a sign on the roadside in Iceland, and I think just symbolizes information overload. It's a, what is all that about? Context today is the thing that we provide in education. Teachers provide the context. The content can be anywhere. And I think that's a shift, because in previous times, I think we've seen the school has seen its content as what it really sells, and that if we let that content appear freely on the net, we will be sawing off the branch we're sitting on. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, really. However, that's not the case. You can give away your content, but what you have is providing context, and that's provided by the teachers, putting it all together. And the open educational movement is about putting your content out there on the net for anyone to use. However, your selling point, or what your college offers as a unique selling point, is putting that into context. The lecturers, the teachers help the students make sense of it all. So if universities start putting content out on the net and letting others use it, what do they get out of it? Well, visibility as we'll show, I mean, the universities who are already sharing their resources and making them available to other people and even letting other people copy their resources and use it in their teaching, that provides visibility. It's public relations, it's marketing. And we'll see examples. People like MIT, Stanford, and so on, who have gained a lot of visibility and a lot of publicity by becoming more open. It also adds to recruitment. The UK's Open University has for many years put its course material freely on the net, and anyone can work their way through it on their own. You don't get any help. You might be able to contact other people interested, but you're not given any tuition. But the material's all available, and you're welcome to use it for your own pleasure. And that has actually added to their recruitment. They've proved in several studies that they've gained a lot of students who have maybe done half the course for free and then thought, I want to get some credit for this. I want to become a registered student, and they've signed up. It does increase recruitment. It also helps raise quality, because once you start putting material openly on the net, then you've got to start thinking about a lot of questions. You've got, is it good quality? Is this actually creating a good reputation for our school or college or university? If not, you better do something about it. As soon as you put it out there visible to the rest of the world, people are going to have opinions about it, and they're going to tell you what they think, and they're going to offer suggestions to make it better. If you break copyright and you have pictures that you're not supposed to have, then people out there on the net are going to tell you, and you could even get sued. So you really have to understand copyright. You really have to understand quality, and it does raise the quality of your teaching material if it's open on the net. It's also part of outreach and lifelong learning, basically the university giving something back to the community who's paying for it. Because let's face it, many of our universities are state funded. The taxpayers are paying for us. And I think it's actually quite fair that they have the right to see what we produce. It's not hidden away. Why should teachers become open? Oh, sorry. I didn't realize. This is in Swedish. I will translate for you. My own silly fault. That's what happens when you cut and paste your own material. Yes, for the teacher, basically, by sharing resources, by making resources available and using other people's resources, you don't need to do so much work yourself. I'm not meaning that makes you lazy or anything. It just means that maybe you don't need to produce this lecture yourself. You can use someone else's. Maybe you don't need to do this diagram yourself. There's a much better one on the net. Maybe you can take it straight off, but maybe, as I see Ellie is saying, you have to adapt it and do something else with it. So that that's something you have to do, but you don't have to do the initial work of putting it all together. You also create more time for dialogue and discussion in the classroom because you're not spending the time working on one-way communication and input. It raises the quality of your work, as I said before, that because you put it out there on the net, you make it available to everybody, and it's open for comment. It's like peer review for teaching material. Someone is going to comment on what you've put out there, and if it isn't good enough, they'll tell you. It also creates a reputation for you as a teacher. If you put out material and other teachers start using it, they spread the word. Your material is good. It becomes popular, and it increases your reputation. It also creates networks. Because you've got a reputation, you'll get invitations from other teachers in other places, maybe to come and present, maybe to help them on a project. It increases your network. And I can definitely vouch for that, since really an awful lot of by being more open, I've managed to get myself involved in all sorts of projects and exciting activities. For the student, we can say that the students get access to enormous amounts of resources. They already have that access today. They They're not restricted to the course books and the material that's available on the course. They can go to other universities, to other schools. They can find other resources. They have a much greater choice. They can even test drive courses. Many courses are already openly available. You can try them out yourself before you register. You also get user-generated content. Many teachers are now letting students make the content, get them to write it, get them to make films they put on the net, and they can be used in other courses. There's a whole movement of user-generated content. Students on one course make material that students on the next course can use and then adapt and continue to develop. And of course, by creating resources together, you have collaborative learning. Students working in groups to produce new learning resources to help other students, or maybe to help younger students, or maybe to add to international knowledge. We have student groups, I know at my university and many others, where student groups are actually writing the Wikipedia page for certain concepts in what they're studying, because maybe in your language there is nothing on Wikipedia for that particular concept. It's very difficult in English, but in many smaller languages it's quite easy. And students can actually write content that is going to be critically examined by many people. And that is an invigorating prospect. And also students can gain reputation themselves by producing good material. So really, before we start talking about openness, what do we mean by openness? I'm going to be talking about a lot of open resources, but you've got to always ask yourself, how open are they? Are they accessible? Can you actually get at them? Are they freely accessible? I mean, how open are there passwords? If they're hidden behind passwords, they're maybe not so open. A little bit open, but yeah. The fact that something is accessible, that you can actually find it on the net, doesn't mean that it's completely open, as in reusable, and that you can do something else with it. Is it downloadable? Is it free to copy and reuse? That's not so often. Is it free to adapt? So there's a whole scale here of openness. Maybe I pause for a moment, and are there any questions that have come up, Anita? Surprising you a little bit here, but
there was an interesting discussion going on between Elke and Alexander. Elke had a comment that materials need to be adapted and innovated from year to year, but she also commented that gets a lot of pressure on the teacher, because materials then get, well, the teachers themselves get comparable to others, and sometimes students may, well, decide that other teachers or other teachers' materials are far more better. On the other hand, Alexander had a comment on having some teachers not willing to change and also be, how should I say, too egoistic about their own materials, and that they are doing the job the best anyone can do, basically. So no questions so far, just different comments.
I mean, of course, these are, yeah, understandable. I think with the question of teachers, the students might skip you, or they might go to some other. In a way, does it? I wonder. I mean, I haven't got the answers on this myself. I mean, I'm actually not a practicing teacher these days. I mean, this is I do a lot of this sort of thing, but I don't actually have any courses myself anymore. I think. I wonder, could you be a good teacher and not produce material at all? It depends, of course, on our view of the teacher. What's the teacher there for? I think traditionally we expect teachers to produce heaps of material and give this to everyone as the content. But maybe we need to move away and and also the students need to learn that maybe a good teacher doesn't provide an awful lot of content. They point to content, they let you find the content, but the teacher's role is very much helping you make sense of it. organizing a discussion, inspiring, supporting you in your while you find the resources yourself. Maybe that's the best. I feel that's more interesting to learn how to learn than to be given a lot of material. Sometimes it's too much like a charter holiday where we give the students these great reading lists and say, here you are. You don't have to look for anything yourself. We're giving you it all. I think maybe they need to learn how to find and critically examine material. And if the students find other teachers who are better, then that's great. What I provide is the discussion and put it all in the context. I don't provide the content, but it can be misinterpreted, certainly. Students can think that you're a lazy teacher.
There was another point just before you started your presentation. Jelena had a comment or heard from a colleague that whatever is found in a PDF form online is therefore available for print and basically open.
Don't think so, no.
No, I think that's too broad of a generalization here. Okay.
Move on a little bit of history really first, not about openness. MIT, they started putting course material out on the net back in about 2001 with MIT OpenCourseWare. If you click on the picture, you'll come to that site. OpenCourseWare is basically a massive collection of their course material. There's lectures, there's notes, there's tests and things like that. Loads of videos. You don't need to register, it's all there. However, how open is it? Well, it's not very open really, because you're not able to copy, you're not able to reuse, you're not able to adapt. It is basically copyright MIT. So it's okay to refer to it, you can link to it, but you can't just sort of take it onto your own course and embed it in your own materials and use it the way you want to use it. So it's not completely open, but it's a massive step. It was an important step that universities start putting their course material openly out there and basically saying this content, we're willing to give this to you and let you have free access. What we still have as our trump card is the context that our teachers provide and, of course, the examination. But there's a goldmine of information there. In about sort of, I don't have the date actually, I think it was about 2004 or something, 2005, someone maybe can correct me. iTunes started, of course, iTunes has been going for a long time as Apple's great big music site. At Stanford University, they had the idea of putting lectures out on the net and making them freely available. And they did a deal with Apple, and iTunes University, iTunes U, was started up. And it was basically a distribution channel to put lectures and make lectures freely available, and that anyone could download them to a mobile or to a computer and play them whenever they want. Since then, there's been, I think there's about 1,500, maybe it's coming up towards 2,000 universities and colleges and schools who are on iTunes U, and they offer lectures, but it's basically recorded lectures for free, and you can download them and you can watch them on your mobile whenever you like. And this is a gold mine that I find that not that many students really know about. There's just about every subject area available from high school up to fairly advanced university level. The quality of the recordings is not always fantastic. Sometimes it's excellent, sometimes it's fairly homemade. But again, the point is universities making their content freely available. However, this isn't very open, because it's all copyright from the universities who've supplied it. You cannot remix, you cannot adapt, you can link to it and you can refer to it, but you're not allowed to sort of do any more. It is copyright. It's not only for Apple users. It works perfectly well on a PC. You just need to download iTunes to your PC and use it there. Not sure how it works with Android mobiles. I'm sure there's a way around somehow, but I don't know, since I'm rather Apple oriented. There are similar sites like Academic Earth and YouTube Edu, which have often very similar material, sometimes exactly the same material being distributed by those universities. Yeah, and the time to find resources is huge. That is a problem. Yeah, I'm going to give you some tools about trying to find it, but it still is a difficult. It's difficult. There's so much out there. We're drowning in the content, and it is very tough. It's a time-consuming. Yeah, it does take time. Yep, there's iTunes for Windows as well. Chantal, yes, exactly. Anyway, iTunes U has been a massive, massive success, and still more and more universities sign up for it, so it's not going away anytime soon. However, I want to further add, it is not OER. It is not Open Educational Resources. Same thing goes to TED Talks, which are so stupendously popular and spread like wildfire. Again, used very much in teaching, but again, it's something you can link to. It is not completely open. There is a copyright on it. It's not always freely available. So always check that sort of thing. But again, a massive resource. There's so much out there. Inspiring short videos. So we come to OER. What exactly are they? Basically, it's educational material that's published openly on the web. And the important thing is that it may be reused and sometimes adapted, but you're able to copy it. And it's clear that you can do that. It can be very many forms. It can be even source code for data. It can be, but video, audio, photos, text, animation, the most popular. The most important point is that it's clear conditions for copying and adapting, and that is using Creative Commons licensing. The problem we have today is that basically copyright is default. When you put a picture on the net, for example, or text or whatever, if you don't do anything with it, if you don't mark it as anything else, then in most countries, certainly here in Sweden, it is automatically copyright. And that means that nobody can use your photo or whatever it is at all without your permission. You can link to it, but you may not use it embed it in a presentation, put it on a web page, use it on a course, in a learning management system without asking permission. Because basically anything you put on the net, even if it's behind the firewall or the login of a learning management system, it's on the net, and it's very easy to spread from there. No matter how locked in you may think it is, once it's on the net, it's out there. So that I suspect most colleges and universities in the world break copyright regulations regularly. If you just Google a picture, for example, and put it onto a presentation, and it's then put out on a webinar like this, or it's on a web page for some reason, if it's not got a Creative Commons license, then you really should ask permission first. The problem is, how do you ask permission? A lot of material that is on the net, you can't see who wrote it or who made it. It's not, the actual author is not clear. And if it's not clear, how do you get permission to use it? Sometimes even if you try to get permission, they don't answer. I've had that a lot of times, in which case I can't touch it. And it's sad because an awful lot of photographs, an awful lot of material could be used by other people. Very often the author doesn't mind it being reused. It's just they haven't thought about licensing it in the right way. And if it's copyright, you're stuck. You can't do anything with it. So we have this problem that copyright is default. However, if we could somehow define what we will allow other people to do with our work in advance so they don't have to ask for permission, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we saw immediately on any piece of work that's on the net that it's okay to use this, it's okay to copy it, it's okay to remix it or to adapt it. Wouldn't it be nice if we got that permission without having to ask first? And if it isn't okay, then it's copyright. But for most people, we don't mind other people using it. So we use Creative Commons to fill the gap. Because on the extreme left here, you have full copyright and you're very restricted. There's nothing you can do with the work unless you have permission. The far right of the other extreme is public domain, in which case it's completely free to use. And there is material that is public domain, but it's often extremely old, like photographs from the beginning of last century and so on. The copyright has run out and it's freely available. In between these two extremes are a number of Creative Commons licenses. And I'll just go through them with you. Some are more closed than others. You can see the 6 licenses, the six variations there in a row, and they range on they are different shades of openness. There are 4 Creative Commons symbols, and you don't even need to use the symbols. You can use the abbreviation instead. And if you just write these at the bottom of your presentation or at the bottom of your picture or text, then people know what they can do with it. You always have to have the by condition, attribution. So always with Creative Commons, if you use a Creative Commons picture or image or text or video or whatever, you always have to attribute it to the source. You have to link to where you got it from, who did it. So you have to always give credit to the author of the work. That's compulsory every time. You can then add, if you want, share alike. And if you add share alike, it means that someone else can copy it. But if they copy it, they have to share their work with the same conditions as you share the original. So if my photograph had attribution and share alike, then if you take it, you have to have the condition attribution, share alike. And it continues and continues. No derivatives means you can copy it, but you may not change it in any way. So that no derivative, nothing can be changed. So if it's a photograph, you may not Photoshop it. If it's a text, you're not allowed to translate it. You're not allowed to change anything in it, but you're free to use it. And finally, non-commercial means you're not allowed to use it and make money out of it. And that's a controversial condition because, yeah, what do we mean by non-commercial? As a university that takes fees from its students, is that commercial or non-commercial? A private school, is that commercial, non-commercial? It's tricky. I think I saw a question there. Alexander, what percentage of all materials on the net have CC labels within? Very, very small, I would say. Very, very, very small. There's still millions, but compared to everything else, it's not very many. But it's as Peter says, it's increasing. The awareness of Creative Commons is increasing. It's more in some countries and less in others. Here in Sweden, it's still fairly rare, and there's actually rather little Swedish material that is Creative Commons. But as awareness grows, hopefully more people will put material with Creative Commons licenses there. This slide you're welcome to go back to, but this is a nice one that I've, as you can see, my pictures at the bottom, I give the Creative Commons license conditions there. You can see where I got this from, who did it, and the license that this image has been created under. It's a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license, which I am doing by quoting that. So that this explains the different licenses you can put on your work, and it depends how open you want to make your work. If you use just the attribution license with nothing else, CC BY, or that symbol, basically you are giving other people the right to do absolutely anything they want with your work as long as they give you credit for it. That's all. You just want credit. But if somebody can make money with your work, that's fine. That's fine by you, as long as you get credit as the original author. So that's the most open of the lot. Down at the bottom, the least free, where you're getting close to the copyright law, here you're saying that, yes, you can copy my work, but you may not change it in any way, and you may not use it for commercial purposes at all. So that's restricted, but it's still clear what we're supposed to do. But we can copy it. I could embed it in my website. I could use it in this presentation. If we're going to use a Creative Commons license, this is the way to do it. And actually, I looked at the last minute and realized I don't always do it exactly like this, but I do have all these three conditions in the pictures I use, but maybe not quite in this order. But it suggests that you first of all have the title with a link to the original work, what the actual image or work was called originally, and a link to it, who did it, and a link to that author, and which Creative Commons license is being used, with a link to the conditions of that license, which you can find on creativecommons.com. Oh, sorry, creativecommons.org. And you can put it directly under the photo or at the end of the blog post, or if it's a text, at the end of the text. But you're showing clearly where you got this from. It's not your work. You've copied someone else's. Yes, as Alexander says, it's a kind of of course, it's restrictions. Creative Commons is an extra copyright agreement that's placed on top of the copyright agreement. It's not an alternative to copyright. It builds on the copyright law. Yes, there's a CC public domain option, Jill, as well. Yes, that basically says it's completely wide open. Do anything you like, and you don't need to credit anybody. But if only everybody used this, it would be very clear what you can do with material on the web. There's a lot of material on the web that's a gray zone that we really, it's difficult to know. Technically speaking, you should never, you shouldn't even copy YouTube films. But the trouble is, most YouTube films, it's wide open to embed them on any website you want, and many films make it clear that it's perfectly okay to do so. But it would be nice if they had Creative Commons conditions there to make it clear legally that it's okay to do so. But there is a gray zone, and there are many, many services that I wonder about. Services like Pinterest and Facebook, if you really looked at the copyright implications there, how most of what goes on there is maybe very questionable. Any other questions come up, Anita?
No, except the one about the percentage of materials. That's about it. Everybody has been listening carefully.
There's an important point from Jill there. It's worth reading there, that it's not that there are disadvantages. Of course there are. It wasn't developed with spatial data, maps, aerial photos, and databases in mind. Yes, exactly. It's Creative Commons is very much based on the idea that me as an individual, I have written this material and I have the rights to it. What happens when you're using databases where there are hundreds of people who have contributed to this? And many other services where there's a cast of thousands who have actually contributed to that resource. Not one person can say this is Creative Commons. Yeah. You also have problems with licensing. For example, if I make a recording myself of a lecture or a speech like this, I can decide this is Creative Commons and I can put it out with that license. But if I have a film team in front of me, and they've been filming me using the university's cameras and equipments and lighting and everything, then it's not my decision that this is Creative Commons. I've got to ask these guys as well. And they might not agree. And the more people involved, the more difficult it is to actually make it Creative Commons and to make it freely available. You need to have agreements, and you need to have agreements at your school or university to make clear whose property these things are, because it gets very complicated. If you make a film of where you have a whole class of students visible in the film, then you actually have to have permission from every single one of them to make it freely available or to publish it on the net. And again, we probably often forget that, but it's very important. They are also part of this production. That's why I tried to say at the beginning of the film that this film is being recorded and will be available on the net. And anyone who writes in the chat must realize that your name will be visible in the recording. And if that's a problem, then it's better not to get involved in that particular discussion. Maybe we haven't covered ourselves completely on that point. I don't know, but I try to make it clear. But there are many, many problems with this. It's not crystal clear. But I think Creative Commons, when one or a group of people are agreed, I think it can solve a lot of problems, but it doesn't solve everything. And I think we're only just beginning to realize what the openness of the net really means, and how I think things like copyright law, it has to be revised. If you go to creativecommons.org, or your country's equivalent, because just most countries have their own Creative Commons site in your own language. So there's creativecommons.se for Sweden. There is a Creative Commons for Serbia, Creative Commons site for Germany and Australia, and so on. You'll find very simple tools describing how you create a license. You can quickly write in, you see the step-by-step guide. You basically write the title of your work and the link to it, and then a little bit about whether you want to allow commercial use or modifications. And it automatically creates a nice HTML code that you can then add to your blog or whatever. And it creates this Creative Commons symbol with the right attribution and a link to the Creative Commons license. So it's actually it only takes a couple of minutes to fill it in, and you get the actual logo and the license exactly right. But for many people, you can very often just add the letters yourself, the Creative Commons, the by or at the by or the share alike SA or ND or NC at the bottom of your text, and that gives people that makes people realize it is a Creative Commons, but it's best to have the logo. Yep, Peter, I'm well aware of the OER University offering courses using OER. I've decided not to go into all that this time, and I'm not going to touch the subject of MOOCs, which is one of my favorite subjects, but I'm going to try and not mention MOOCs anymore, not for this time, but absolutely, there is a massive amount of wonderful work being done with OERs at the moment. So, some sources of open learning. I'm going to give you a few links here. What you could do is, while I'm just showing you these, you can click on the symbols and open them in your web browser. And then in a few minutes' time, I'm going to take a little break, and I'm going to let you all spend some time clicking on these and testing them. But I just want to show a variety of what's available. Wikimedia Commons is a gold mine of photos, diagrams, and so on that can be used in education. And as far as I know, everything in there has a Creative Commons license. But again, you have to look at each object and what license is available and follow that license. Wikibooks has whole textbooks written by teachers mostly for use in schools. They're completely free textbooks. Many of them can be adapted, translated, rewritten, or whatever, or you can take them straight off. But there is a lot of good material out there, and it's the result of teachers collaborating freely. Wikiversity has whole university modules and courses. The Wikibooks link doesn't work for you. Do you try myself? I've got another. If you just search just Wikibooks on Google, you'll get to it. I think it's wikibooks.org. I'm sorry if that doesn't work. I'm going to put up a link list in a minute so that you can use. Wikiversity has whole courses and modules and so on that are ready to use. YouTube. There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. But if you go to YouTube Edu, you'll find educational materials that are actually issued by schools and colleges. They're not completely free video. They're not videos that students have done and so on. Open Courseware Consortium, Merlot, Sophia, OER Commons have masses of resources that are freely available and with Creative Commons licenses. And although Flickr has billions of photographs, there are millions of them that have Creative Commons licenses. Images, there are loads of photos out there with Creative Commons. And these are some of the ways of getting at them. There's even an open clip art library where with clip art that is actually Creative Commons licensed. Music and sound, Jamendo and Free Music Archive have actually lots and thousands of songs and instrumental tracks that are Creative Commons licensed that you may use as soundtracks for films that you or your students make. And I think very few people use this. There is a gold mine. There are all the different types of music available. It's often young musicians who want to get heard, and they don't put a price tag on their music. It's not pirated. It's honest. There's no stars in there. You won't find any major names whatsoever. You'll never have heard of any of them. But there's some good stuff there. And if you want the soundtrack for a film that you're going to make or your students are going to make, have a look around there and use it and put the license up and share. OER search is we have a problem here that trying to find these resources is a headache. Mostly because there isn't good tagging on videos and audios and photographs. People don't tag their photographs very effectively, so we don't actually know what they're about, and Google can't find it very well. Video is even worse. Most of the time, videos, there's a title, and that's about all you have. Audio, how do you find audio tracks that are any use, apart from the title of the piece? Very, very difficult. So poor tagging is a problem. And if you're going to put if you're going to put resources out there, please tag it. Please describe what it is. Please give information that Google and other search engines can make use of. Don't just use a title. You're going to need your librarian to look for this sort of stuff. And I think that's a key role for university libraries and school libraries, is helping teachers and students to find resources that they can use and to increase awareness. This is an absolutely central library role. Here's one to click on, CC Search. And I'm going to stop in a minute, I really promise. The CC Search, you enter your search word in English. This is a bit of a problem. So much of this is in English. If you use another language, you narrow your search ability extremely much. Spanish goes pretty well, French to a certain extent, but once you get to, I mean, like Swedish, you might get I get a few pictures, but if I use the same word in English, I get thousands. So you enter your search word, and then you can search they provide 13 different sources at the moment. So you can search on Flickr. You press the Flickr button, or Photopedia, or Google, or one of these other ones, Jamendo for music, and then search the sort of music you want. So that's a great search engine to try. Oh yeah, this one, Photopin, is very nice, because When you find a photograph, it searches photos on Flickr, and when you find a suitable photograph, you click for information. And there you can see all the different versions of the photo that you can download. And at the bottom, you can copy and paste HTML code that will automatically put the correct Creative Commons license in there for you. There are probably lots more tools like this, but I like PhotoPin's really nice. And finally, before we give you some time to play around, a college that is just down the road from here called the Blakinge Institute of Technology, their library has done a very advanced Google search definition for searching for open educational resources. And if you go to this site, you just click on the image that I put there. If you write what you're searching for, it'll search via Google for open resources, and it can be lesson plans, it can be all types of resources, not just photographs or videos. It searches for everything on with what you want. So that one, have a go with it. They're very interested in getting feedback for this because it's still being developed, but they've done a massive sort of advanced Google search, and they've then saved it on here. And so when you search in this button there, you're using their advanced Google search. So they've used all the Google search tricks they can find to make sure that you only get OER out of this and not anything else. Now, I will shut up for a little while and let you play around, because on the far right here, there are some of the links that I've had. Maybe some of you have already clicked on the links from my slides, but these are over there are some of the most important ones. Basically, I want you to spend 5 minutes or so, click on them, play with them, search for some stuff, try something you've never tried before, and write down some questions in the chat, and I'll pick them up afterwards. But yeah, as they say in the trade, we'll take a commercial break and we'll be right back. So play around, have fun, and just chat to each other and have a look at some things. I'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. Or is there anything you want to say, Anita, before I close my mic?
No, I'm good. You were quite clear in your instructions.
Okie dokie. Sorry, folks. The third link on the web links is that advanced Google search that my colleagues at Blaking Institute of Technology have made. It's called OER at BTH. I didn't make that very clear. Oh, SoundGator, yes, LK. I know that one for sound effects. I think I had on my list back there was, what's it called again? SoundCloud, and CC Mixter was on my list. SoundCloud has sound effects. Now, PhotoPin is a lovely one. It's nice graphically. I saw an app for an iPad, and I'm trying to remember what it is, but I can't remember it at the moment. I'd have to spend time there. There's a nice iPad app for finding photographs and getting Creative Commons licenses straight away on them. Oh, Milos has to go. Oh, sorry. We'll see you again sometime. I've got a little bit more to round off, but I'm hoping to get some questions from you. Anita, scrolling through sponsored stock photos. Do you mean PhotoPin? There are generally only a few of the sponsored ones. Ah, okay. Yeah, there are sometimes. You have to watch it. The ones at the top are the sponsored ones, and there's a dividing line. It's also clear that what the stock photos, there's lots of sites that say free stock photos and so on. They're only free for personal use. They're not free if you're going to publish them openly on the net. They will want money for them. So what they mean by free is that's a debatable concept. When you search for like free photos and free sound clips and so on, they're not free. They are free for personal use, but that's all. The rest is under license, and there's price lists for it. Some great links coming up from everybody, and that's one of the nice things about having webinars like this is that you contribute your links, and we'll send you the link to the recording of this after we're finished, and you'll be able to go back into the chat and click on all the links yourself. And you can stop this at any point in the recording and then just click on things as you feel like it. That's one of the great advantages. Not sure how many minutes I've given you, but it's maybe about 5 minutes by now. But any comments that you can write on the chat, then please comment on what you found. Or some people seem to be quite happy to have found some of these. Jamendo seems popular. Have a look at Free Music Archive as well. It's also some nice music. What will the license for this recording be? Good question. Basically, you can't do anything with this, I don't think. It's free to use. You can send it to anyone you like. That's a good point. We should have had a Creative Commons license at the bottom of the screen somewhere. I would say basically share alike, non-commercial. You can Twitter the link to it. You can do what you like. The more people who see this, the better, really. I mean, if they want to. I would say though that this sort of recording is of limited use many times, because I think much better on the net is shorter, sweeter recordings. Like TED Talks and so on. Keep them short and sweet. Not many people really want to listen to a 1 hour plus recording of a lecture. It's not that gripping, and I realize that. But this is as a webinar, fine, but it's quite a lot to ask somebody to watch all of this. But you can fast forward. Maybe if I move back to presentation mode. Yeah, there's some people who listen to very long podcasts, that's true. Must have read about an interview that some journalist did recently, which is a world record interview. They sat interviewing the same person for 36 hours, actually non-stop. Sometimes there was complete silence when they couldn't think of what to say. If anyone wants to watch that again, they're welcome. Okay, so as you can see, there are a lot of clever tools around, and more. Oh yes, and you can share with this absolutely. Sorry, did the sound? I hope. I wonder what happened to the sound there. And you're welcome to send the link to this to anyone you like and show it to anyone you like. No problem. Yeah, Peter, the using CC BY. Well, yeah, I like you. That's the most open of the lot. The only trouble is, of course, are you perfectly happy if somebody uses it, beds it into a commercial product and sells it, and claims that your university has contributed to the product without giving you any money for it? Maybe you're not always happy with that. If you use just attribution as the license, then really, yeah, they can do anything they like with it. But if you're comfortable with that, fine. But I'm not sure if my university is keen to be as free as that. In fact, I'm sure they're not. Now, we talk a lot about sustainability today, and I just want to round off with a few sort of comments about OER for something to think about in a way when you're producing your own, when you're producing and sharing your own resources. We have to think about it being sustainable. One of the problems is an awful lot of OER today are so-called fly-on-the-wall recordings. In other words, somebody sticks a camera at the back of a lecture hall with a whole pile of students in the hall, and the lecturer stands in front of the board and does a classic one-way traffic lecture, which could be very inspiring and very interesting. However, the camera's been recording, and you're a fly on the wall watching what happened in that session. The teacher is not talking to the audience on the net or a future net audience. The teacher can often spend a lot of time talking about what a nice day it is today, or we're looking forward to Christmas, or I'd like to see such and such a person after class, or could you hand in those assignments and stuff like that. And the people who watch that maybe several months later sitting in Cape Town or in Buenos Aires and so on really are not interested in those sort of comments. So really a fly on the wall recording is of very limited use in another country in another context. And maybe if we want our resources to be used again by other people, we need to sort of think about what we put in them. We need to plan for them being reused. And that means trying to make them less context specific. When you're going to record something that you want to be shared and used a lot around the world, then try not to be too stuck on the context of where you are at the moment. Get the students away, record it face into your computer as a 10-minute lecture or something, and make that available, because you're talking to the person out there on the net. You're not talking to the group in the classroom. Also, daring to reuse and adapt others' material. You've got to start doing it yourself. Maybe it's a bit daunting to start sharing your own resources. Maybe you should try and use or reuse other people's resources first to get a feel of it. Look for OER and try to use it yourself. And then once you feel comfortable with that, try to think, what have I got that I'd like to share, and where can I share it? What's the best site for me? Would I like to put it up on Wiki Educator, Wikiversity? Would I like to add it to any of there are lots of national repositories for OER. Yeah, where do you want to put it? But remember, think about, is this going to be useful to other people? How can I how can I tailor this to make it as useful as possible to as wide an audience as possible? Because let's face it, I think it would be quite amazing to find that somebody, you know, that maybe, I mean, this could be used by faculty at a university in Australia. I think it's pretty mind-blowing for me as well. And it's fun to imagine. But you've got to try and make it as applicable to their circumstances as possible. And one of the key factors is what's known as metadata or tagging. Basically, this is about information about the resource. And if we can get this right, we can help future people find our resources properly. This picture that I've taken with permission from sophia.org, and the resources on Sophia they're all tagged in an exemplary manner. This is a learning object about critical reading as a learning strategy. You can see it's got ratings. People have rated it for how good they think it is. You can see who wrote it. There's an objective. There's a summary. You can see where the cover art came from, what subjects it's recommended for use in, what related courses, which it's referring to courses that are related to this learning object, what level of education. There's tags there, what other playlists it belongs to, and there's full license information. You can see that it's been viewed 4,805 times, shared 4 times, has 8 followers, and belongs to 5 groups. There are also cases where there's an extra tab where there's a frequently asked questions session where the author of the resource, or the authors, have answered some questions that people normally ask about this particular resource. Maybe they can have a link to the author, so you can actually ask the author direct whether you may, you know, maybe some idea you've got to use it, or maybe you want to collaborate with them. But if we make all this sort of information clear on the resources we provide, then we're building up something that search engines can really latch onto. But as long as we're putting a lot of good resources out there with very little metadata, no search engine is ever going to find them, and they are practically useless. And we have an awful lot of good material out there that is practically useless because you can't find it. Yeah, Alexander, putting something on internet and it's not shareable is the contradiction to the purpose of www. True, but there's an awful lot out there that is a contradiction of the purpose of the original World Wide Web. And big business is taking over more and more. But I think if we get it right like this, if more and more universities are already doing this and producing superb material, and there are information boxes like this where you can instantly see all the important facts. Is this related? This is high school level. Right, that's the level I want. What subjects does it relate to? Yes, English, reading, that's what I want it for. Here's a summary. I can even sometimes check on what other satisfied customers have thought about it. And once we start adding this sort of metadata, we get into a world a little bit like the Amazon world, where, you know, you get, if you've used this resource and enjoyed using it, then you might be interested in the following resources because they're very clearly related. And we need to find ways of helping people find the next step, instead of taking each resource in isolation and then trying to find another one that's related, that one resource leads to another. Or you have smarter search engines and smarter search services that will offer you a path, a learning path. But if you take the following 10 learning resources in a row, these form a whole that might provide you with the basis of the course. And really, we need to build up in our universities and schools a culture of sharing, and I don't think that's really so common. There are some places that do it, but I think we're still very afraid of sharing and opening up. There's a tradition in teaching, and I was brought up in it, that each teacher builds their own resources and then holds on to it. And you might share it with a trusted colleague, but nowhere else. And some teachers don't share any. When I started teaching, there were some teachers, I knew they had great resources, but they didn't share them. The message was, find out for yourself. And it seems rather a little bit self-defeating. But we need to get a culture of sharing. We need to realize that the content is everywhere and that there really isn't much point in hanging on to your own content and defending it to the death, because someone else has probably already done it. As I said, context is king, and really it's a new teacher role amongst everything else. The most important is just the teacher's role is not to produce material so much, it's to facilitate learning. So that we need to get our understanding for that, because I think a lot of I've heard teachers who try to share and try to use other people's material, and then the students have given them a bad evaluation on the grounds that this teacher isn't a real teacher, they didn't do any lecturing, or they used other people's lectures, therefore the teacher is lazy. We need to get a culture of sharing and an understanding for this amongst our students, as well as amongst the staff, and in schools amongst the parents, because they can sometimes be very conservative and you can get negative comments that way. My son's teacher doesn't even teach, they send the kids to look on YouTube, isn't this a disgrace? And the popular press latch on to cases like this as evidence of lazy teachers and so on. We need a new culture here. And that's very much something that the leadership has to, the management and the top people need to understand and need to work with, right from government level, to make it safe to share, to make people feel that they are doing their job. You're not being lazy. You're not being, that this is part of modern learning. And just to show how important all this is, UNESCO had a conference in Paris last June, 1 year ago, and they released the 2012 Paris OER Declaration, calling on member countries of UNESCO to develop national strategies for using open educational resources in all forms of education by 2015. I don't think they'll all do that by 2015, but there's a clear commitment from UNESCO and also OECD, who are also working hard on this, that this is part of the agenda. There's a new EU document that's come out. It's not completely official yet, but it's called Opening Up Education, and there's an EU roadmap document that basically points to how the European education system has to open up and has to use and exploit the benefits of OER much, much more. And that's going to come from the top down. There's going to be very much pressure on opening up the teaching materials in Europe, so that there is going to be pressure on our governments for this. I think it needs both. You need to have pressure from the top and clear visions, and you have to have the grassroots enthusiasm. We've got quite a lot of grassroots enthusiasm, but it's not being met by actual pressure from the top. I'd like to round off here, and I wonder if you've got any questions. I'm trying to look now in the chat a little bit more. Oh, a social tagging and bookmarking site for teachers. That's interesting. Okay, let's click on that. There's an awful lot of good stuff going on. There are some Serbian language OER journals. Okay. Always takes time for people to write on the chat. But
yes, Lee at one point disagreed with Alexander's comment on the contradiction of unshareable content on the net. So maybe Lee would like to elaborate on why there is such a disagreement with the statement?
We can always try, give him the microphone and see if it works. Is he still there?
No, we lost Lee meanwhile.
Okay. Oh, I think the original idea of the World Wide Web was very much open and sharing and a community, but it's got an awful lot bigger since then. If you've got if you've got a headset with a microphone that is up and running and fine, then we can give you the. I think we should be able to give you the microphone and save you writing. So if you want to have a go, then just raise your hand, or you can press the little hand raising button that is above me over on the right. No takers. Well, I'm waiting. There's my digital footprints. I spend an awful lot of time monitoring what's going on in the world of IT and learning, and I blog and spread what I read. I use various sites to show the articles I read and what I'm doing and so on. Twitter there, and I save all my bookmarks. Actually, for security reasons, I use Delicious and Digo, both of the two services. It's a bit confusing at times, but I try and enter everything on both of them. There's always the risk that one of them will go up in smoke. Maybe we can round off and go to the final view. If you could answer the questions there on the right.
Yes, please, just 3 exit questions for you. I would also like to mention that Alastair has recommended a basic guide to open educational resources, and you can find it in the related links box in the top left corner there to download. You have
Peter's asking a question here about OERs in general. Open university courses represent a threat to the future of traditional university education, which may be seen as financially unsustainable. Oh, this is the big MOOC debate, isn't it? I think I'm a bit tired of seeing this as a sort of one or the other argument. It's rather polarized at the moment. There are all these hyped articles suggesting that MOOCs and open education is the end of university education as we know it, and I think that's a little bit alarmist, really. I don't think traditional. I think there's a place for traditional campus education in the future. The trouble is, it's getting extremely expensive. I think new models will appear. I think for the elite institutions, the sort of Oxfords and Harvards and Yales and so on, I think they'll keep sailing on because their label is so incredibly strong. Their market value is so strong that a degree from that place is worth gold. And I don't think they're going to be disappearing anytime soon. It may be trickier for some of the sort of middle range universities to compete because you can see the most active MOOC people are like the likes of Stanford and Harvard and so on. And it's no coincidence that they're getting into this. I think we'll see. I have like a model of a sort of layered model where at the bottom of this model you've got sort of a massive OER, Now you've got all this all these open resources that are freely available. And if you've got the digital competence and you've got study skills, you can help yourself in there and learn whatever you like, and that's already there. Then over that, you can make courses out of all this stuff and offer these courses like they're doing with MOOCs at the moment, and that's free. But you don't get much guidance and you don't get any credit. But help yourself. But you need you've got to have study skills. You've got to be pretty digitally literate. Not everybody is able to do that. Then on top of that, you can offer pay services like extra tuition, validation, and examination, and many other things as add-ons. And some universities will give you the whole lot, one-stop shopping, and you sign up for them and you get everything. But others, you might want to take the free stuff and then buy as an add-on some tuition from some operator, and then someone else, like a university, can provide me with examination and validation of what I've learned. I think we'll see a much freer market available, and we'll see new actors turning up. Jill's got a nice alternative view why open stuff might not be a good idea. I'll have a look at that later from BBC. There's lots of criticism to this, of course. As Alexander says, if you don't want parts to be taken, don't put it there. If you don't, there is a worry, of course, that we're putting a lot of material out there and that commercial actors are going to take advantage of this. Many people are wondering where the MOOCs are going, and that there's got to be a business plan behind it. Okay, thanks, Peter. Have we got any results from our poll questions on the right? Not too many. People are beginning to please answer them. It's good for us to get an idea of what you found valuable, and I don't think there's been any technical issues, but you never know. I was on a webinar not long ago where one person had technical issues. They said the sound wasn't very good and the video was very patchy. But then we decided to follow it up and ask, where were you? Where were you? They were on a train with a mobile. And I thought, my God, the fact that you can even hear it at all is wonderful. You know, of course it doesn't work properly. But I mean, well done for even following the thing at all. I mean, you can't expect perfection if you're on a train, especially in this country. It's sometimes no reception at all. Okay, I think we'll hang around, and if there's any more questions, we'll just keep it. But I think maybe we should close the recording and thank everyone for participating, and we'll be sending the results to everybody. But I'm happy to keep chatting for a little while afterwards. But Anita, you're welcome to switch off the recording.
I would like to thank all the participants for coming in and joining the discussion. Thank you, Alastair, for a very useful presentation. Everybody has been commenting that the links you've provided were the best aspect of the webinar, as well the information on the Creative Commons licensing. And of course, all the resources are the best thing about it. No unuseful aspects of the presentation as well. That's perfect. I would like to just mention one more time that for all of you who have registered, who actually got my emails about this webinar, you will get an email with a link to the recording in a short while after we finish off. For the rest of you whose emails I do not have, you can always check the Tempus BLATT YouTube channel for the, well, non-interactive video recording of this session later on in the day. Thank you so much.